Okay, picture this. A flag, right? But not just any flag. One that people whisper was like a gift from fairies, real magic involved.
Hmm.
Or think about a clan chief living up to his motto, hold fast, so much that, well, the story goes he actually wrestled a wild bull.
It's amazing how those kinds of stories, those vivid tales, really give you a peek into what people believed back then, their
Yeah,
values.
totally. And that's what we're doing today on the deep dive. We're getting right into the story of Clan MacLeod. We're using the research compiled in Clan MacLeod, the Ancient Clans of Scotland series. It's from bagtownclans.com.
Right.
And this is actually our third deep dive in this series. We've already looked at Clan MacDonald and Clan Campbell, this whole series. It's just fantastic, really dedicated to, preserving all of this rich Scottish clan history.
And when you start looking at these clan histories side by side, you really begin to see the complex pattern of Scotland's past. Every clan is like a different thread making up the whole picture.
Exactly. So for you listening, this is basically your fast track to understanding the MacLeods, their origins, how their society works, their leaders, those amazing legends, all wrapped up in, well, hopefully a pretty engaging chat.
Yeah, much easier than digging through dusty old books.
Right. You get a real feel for a huge piece of Scottish heritage without the academic heavy lifting.
It makes you wonder why these histories still grab us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's that link to ancestry or the sense of community they represent,
Yeah.
or just seeing how people lived so differently.
And speaking of things that connect, this book, Clan MacLeod, the Ancient Clans of Scotland series, and the other two on MacDonald and Campbell, they'd make such a unique gift.
Oh, absolutely.
For someone who's maybe hard to buy for or has some Scottish connection. This series is a really thoughtful deep dive into history. We've put a link to buy it right there in the description for you.
What I like about this compilation is just how much it covers. It touches on everything from, social structures to myths and legends.
Definitely. So today, we'll be digging into what a clan actually was. The MacLeod's specific Norse and Gaelic roots, their social setup, their chiefs, the lands they held, their symbols, and yeah, those incredible supernatural stories and the less glamorous side, the feuds.
Right.
So let's start at the beginning. What exactly is a clan in the Highlands?
Okay, so the word clan itself, it comes from the Gaelic clan, which just means children. But in the Highlands, it meant way more than just your immediate family.
Right.
It was a huge group of people, usually sharing a surname. And this is key. They all believed they descended from a common ancestor, even if, the actual blood connection wasn't totally clear for everyone.
Yeah, and Clan MacLeod is a perfect example of this. Our source points out that while loads of MacLeods traced back to this figure, Leod, others joined the clan in different ways. Maybe they needed protection or got land from the MacLeods or just swore loyalty and were kind of adopted in.
And that loyalty, especially to the chief, was absolutely central. For both the main branches, the MacLeods of Dunvegan and the MacLeods of Lewis, that strong bond created this real sense of unity, of support, which you definitely needed to survive up there.
It really shows how everyone depended on each other, doesn't it? Everyone had a role. The source lays out this kind of hierarchy. You've got the chief at the top, almost like a father figure.
Yeah.
Then chieftains running smaller areas, and below them, the taxmen. They sound important, sort of middle manager.
Exactly. Taxmen managed land and the people on it collected rent, raised warriors when needed. Very important role. Then you had others, vital to clan life, the bards, who were like walking history books, keeping traditions alive through poems and songs.
The keepers of the stories.
And craftsmen making essential things. And of course, the warriors, defending the clan's land and honor.
And you can't forget those symbols. The motto, hold fast. That's so direct, isn't it? Such commitment. And the tartans, those patterns instantly told you someone was a MacLeod. Like the green and blue one for Harris and Dunvegan, or the really bright red one for Lewis. More than just cloth.
Definitely symbols of belonging.
Yeah.
And the crest, the bull's head for the Harrison Dunvegan lot, really speaks to that idea of strength, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And even their plant badge, juniper, had meaning resilience, protection in that tough landscape. All these things together really built that strong group identity.
You start to get a picture of daily life, too. The hard work, farming in that rugged land, sharing stories in the evenings. It emphasizes that tight community born from needing each other, but also real connection. Okay, so we've got the basics of the clan system. Now let's get into the specific origins of Clan MacLeod. Where do they come from?
Well, the source highlights this really interesting mix of Norse and Gaelic roots. The name itself, MacLeod Gaelic for son of Leod, points to their legendary founder from the 13th century, Leod. And tradition says he was the son of Olaf the Black.
Who was?
A big deal.
Huh.
A powerful Norse Gaelic king of man in the Isles. So strong Norse connections right there.
But hang on, that royal link is actually proven history or more like, traditional belief?
That's a good point. It's more tradition than, say, documented fact.
Right.
But what's definite is the huge Norse influence in the Hebrides back then. The name Leod itself probably comes from Old Norse ljot.
Ljot.
Yeah, which could mean bright or maybe even ugly.
Oh.
Bit of a difference.
Right. That ambiguity almost reflects their mixed heritage. They were definitely part of that Norse seafaring world, but also deeply part of Gaelic society.
So it was a real fusion then. Norse sea skills and fighting strength mixed with Gaelic traditions and social structures.
Exactly. And we start seeing the MacLeods in actual historical records around the mid-1300s, though they were likely established before that. There are mentions of Malcolm and Torquil.
They're thought to be Leod's sons or grandsons, and they basically founded the two main branches. Malcolm set up shop in Dunvegan on Skye.
The Dunvegan MacLeods.
Right. And Torquil started the MacLeods of Lewis.
Sile Tormoid and Sile Torquil. Those are the names for the lines, yeah.
Those are the ones. And their rise seems to happen as Norse power in the area was fading, especially after the Treaty of Perth in 1266, when Scotland gained more control.
So they sort of stepped into that gap.
Pretty much. By playing their cards right, sometimes working with the Scottish kings, they got royal charters, secured land. Having strongholds on the coast and controlling sea routes was a huge advantage in a place full of rival clans.
And the first chief we have solid records for is Malcolm MacLeod, 14th century, for the Dunvegan line.
That's him. His descendants then spread their influence across Skye and Harris, and Torquil set up that powerful Lewis branch up north, becoming Lords of Lewis.
So two main branches, but they always knew they shared that ancestor, Leod.
Absolutely. And over the next few centuries, their chiefs became really influential figures, balancing Gaelic ways with Scottish politics. Smart marriages, good local management. That's how they stayed on top.
It really shows how adaptable they were, doesn't it? Blending Norse and Gaelic stuff seamlessly. Even their crest, with the bull's head and later the three legs of man that Manx link.
It's a visual reminder of their mixed heritage. And Dunvegan Castle wasn't just a fort. It became a hub for Gaelic culture, supporting poets, musicians, artists.
And they were politically savvy, too.
Definitely. They held on to significant power in the Hebrides for a long time, even with strong rivals like the MacDonalds and Mackenzies breathing down their necks. It was a balancing act. Tradition, strength, and, well, political smarts.
Okay, so we've got their origins. Let's dig into the actual structure within the Clan MacLeod. It wasn't just one big group, right? There were layers.
Oh, absolutely not. At the very top, you had the clan chief, MacLeod. Huge authority. He led them in war, was the judge, looked after his people, represented the clan to the outside, the crown, other clans.
And under the main chief?
You had chieftains, like the heads of the MacLeods of Rasai or Assynt. They ran their own areas but were still loyal to the main chief. And then there was the Tanist.
The successor.
Yeah, the chosen successor.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it wasn't automatically the oldest son. They often picked someone based on, leadership skills.
Merit, not just birth order. That's interesting.
The old Gaelic system valued that.
Yeah.
Ensured capable leaders.
Yeah.
Below them, you had lairds, landowners, part of the gentry, managing their own estates.
And for managing the land directly, you mentioned taxmen before?
Right, the taxmen. Kind of like estate managers. They leased big chunks of land, oversaw the tenants, collected rents, and crucially, they had to raise fighters when the chief called.
Oh, okay.
Then you had estate managers, the mayor, looking after the chief's personal lands, and foresters managing woods and resources.
And the military side.
You had the clan warrior elite, the Gaiskich, often from taxman families. They had military commanders leading them. And the chief had his personal bodyguards, the Gil Cois, picked for loyalty and fighting skills. Super tough guys.
But it wasn't all about fighting and land, was it? Culture was huge.
Massively important.
Yeah.
You had the bards, poets, musicians, keepers of oral history, genealogies, all through songs and stories. And the Shanakis, the official historians keeping track of lineages.
Like living archives.
Exactly. And the pipers. Especially the MacCrimmons of Borreg hereditary pipers to the MacLeod chief, famous throughout Scotland. Before pipes were big, harpers had a similar high status.
Wow. And then just the everyday folk.
Yeah, the common clansmen farmers,
Yeah.
craftsmen, crofters, small tenant farmers with their own bit of land, and cottars, sort of the lowest tier, often working just for shelter. It paints a picture of a really complex, interconnected society.
It really does. Everyone had their place, their role, contributing to the clan's strength and identity. Okay, let's focus on the people right at the top. The chiefs of Clan MacLeod. The source mentions three main lines, right?
That's right. You've got the MacLeod of Harris and Dunvegan, that's the Seal Tormoid, they're the senior main line. Then the MacLeod of Lewis, the Seal Torkel, and the MacLeod of Rosse.
And that Harris and Dunvegan line, it's an unbroken succession, all the way from the 13th century.
Unbelievably, yes, right up to the present day. The 30th chief, Hugh Magnus MacLeod of MacLeod, still lives at Dunvegan Castle. It's an incredible legacy.
Wow.
The source traces it right back Leod, then key figures like Tormod, Malcolm, all the way down. Real continuity.
Now, the MacLeods of Lewis, their story is a bit rougher. The source mentions chiefs like Roderick and Neil.
Yeah, sadly, their main line died out in the early 17th century. It was partly internal fighting, but mainly the constant pressure from the Mackenzies, who eventually took over Lewis.
Neil MacLeod put up a fight, though.
He did. A long, valiant resistance, but Lewis fell to the Mackenzies in the end. It's interesting, though, the chiefship of the Lewis MacLeods was sort of revived ceremonially in the 20th century, acknowledging their historical importance.
And the third line, the MacLeods of Rosse.
They came from the Lewis branch, and they've kept their own line of chiefs going right up to today. So Dunvegan's the main line, but these other branches are crucial parts of the whole MacLeod story.
Exactly. Each line has its own important history within the bigger clan narrative.
Right, let's talk geography. The places that were key to the MacLeods. Their historic lands. When you think MacLeod, certain places just pop into your head.
Definitely Skye. Especially areas like Durinish, Waternish, Trotternish. That was the heartland for the Dunvegan MacLeods. And Dunvegan Castle itself just, wow, continuously lived in by the chiefs for over 800 years.
800 years? That's insane. Oldest continuously inhabited castle in Scotland, isn't it?
It is. Skye really feels like the spiritual home for the Dunvegan MacLeods.
And Harris, also Dunvegan line. Yes, also held by Dunvegan. Important for its maritime position, but also because that's where the chiefs were buried at St. Clement's Church in Rodell.
Oh, that church sounds significant. Commissioned by Alastair Crotock MacLeod in the 1500s.
A major figure, yes, very important site. Then further north, Lewis, there was the MacLeods of Lewis territory. Their main base was Stornoway Castle.
Until the Mackenzies took over.
Right. The castle ruins are still there, kind of a reminder of their time. And east of Skye, you have Rosse and Rona, held by the MacLeods of Rosse. Their castle, Brochel Castle, was perched right on a cliff.
Dramatic location. But destroyed after 1745?
Sadly, yes. After the Jacobite Rising. On the mainland, the MacLeods of Ascent had land in Sutherland. Ardvra Castle was their seat.
Ardfreck, that's the one linked to Montrose, right? The Marquis of Montrose.
That's the one. He was imprisoned there before his execution. Shows how the MacLeods were caught up in major Scottish events.
And they had land elsewhere, too. Glenelg, Bernure, North Eustace.
Yeah, their reach extended quite far across the Western Isles. Today, places like Dunvegan, St. Clements, Ardvreck, Trumpin, they're like icons of MacLeod history. And Dunvegan is special, still a home, still holding treasures like the fairy flag.
Talking of castles, let's zero in on them. Dunvegan is the big one.
Absolutely. It started in the 13th century, home to the chiefs ever since. Coastal spot, great for defense. It's changed over time, medieval bits, Victorian additions, and yeah, home to the fairy flag.
And Stornoway Castle on Lewis represents that Lewis branch history.
Exactly. Key stronghold for them until it was destroyed in the early 1600s during those conflicts. A big loss for them.
Brochel Castle on Rosse, the clifftop one, sounds formidable.
It was. Built late 15th century, really defensive. Its destruction after the 45 Rising was a major blow to the Rosse MacLeods.
And Ardvreck in a since 16th century, linked to Montrose,
Right.
now just ruins.
Yeah, a ruin. But a powerful reminder of that moment in history and the MacLeods' part in it. These weren't just buildings. They were power centers, cultural hubs full of stories.
Okay, so within the big clan MacLeod picture, there were these different branches. Can you give us a quick rundown of the main ones?
Sure. You've got the MacLeods of Harris and Dunvegan, the main line. MacLeods of Lewis, hugely important historically, even though their main line ended. MacLeods of Rosse came from the Lewis line, known for culture, involved in Jacobite risings. MacLeods of Ascent, another Lewis offshoot, linked to Ardvreck.
And there were others, too.
Oh, yes. MacLeods of Bernure, known for hospitality. MacLeods of Talisker produced poets and genealogists. MacLeods of Dryknock, many emigrated to Australia later on. Each branch added its own flavor to the MacLeod story.
Fascinating how they spread out but kept that connection. Now, something you hear a lot with clans is associated names, or septs. What does that mean exactly?
Right, septs. Basically, families or groups who didn't necessarily have the MacLeod surname, but were historically linked to the clan.
Right.
Various ways, maybe through marriage, so blood ties, or they held land under the MacLeods, or they just swore loyalty and service in return for protection.
So a wider circle of loyalty beyond just the name. And the MacLeods had quite a few.
They did. For Harris and Dunvegan, you see names like McCaskill. They were hereditary bodyguards.
Yeah.
McCrimmon, the famous pipers. Beaton, hereditary doctors. Morrison, hereditary judges, or breves, on Lewis, though their relationship with the MacLeods could be tricky sometimes.
Those hereditary roles are really interesting. Shows how deeply some families were woven into the clan's fabric.
Totally. You also see names like McCorkindale, Ptolemy, McClure linked to Harris and Dunvegan, often through land or service. For the Lewis MacLeods, names like McRae, McLea, McNichol, even some Macaulays and McNeils show up, pointing to all the alliances and connections in that region.
And occupational names, too, like Harper and Smith.
Exactly. People with specific skills became part of the community. These septs really broadened the clan's influence and provided vital support.
Okay, let's talk visuals and symbols, the heart of clan identity. Symbols of Clan MacLeod. We've touched on some, but let's get specific.
Well, the clan crest badge is actually different for the two main branches. For Harris and Dunvegan, it's a black bull's head with gold horns between two red flags, all inside a belt with the motto, "Hold fast."
Okay. And Lewis?
For Lewis, it's a bright golden sun, inside a belt with the Latin motto, Luceo non uro,
Which means
I shine, not burn.
two very different vibes there, reflecting their histories maybe. And the plant badge for everyone is juniper.
Juniper, yes, or Yedian in Gaelic,
Mm-hmm.
symbolizes resilience, protection, like the plant itself, toughing it out.
Makes sense. What about the heraldic arms, the coat of arms?
The chief of MacLeod's arms are quartered. They show a silver castle and the Triskelion, those three joined legs. That's a clear nod to their Norse Gaelic roots and the Isle of Man connection. The Lewis arms have a golden sun and a galley, a ship showing off their seafaring side.
And the music. Clan pike tunes like MacLeod's Salute and MacLeod of Racy's March, played by the McCrimmons, right?
Huh.
Hugely important culturally.
Absolutely central to gatherings, celebrations, even battles. And the chief's Gaelic title is just MacLeod, son of Leod, used for both main chiefs, a constant reminder of where they came from.
Now, that motto and battle cry, hold fast, it's iconic for the MacLeods.
It really is. The official motto for Harris and Dunvegan, "Hold fast," just sums up that core value. Loyalty, strength, never giving up, the origin story. Maybe a chief shouting it in battle or literally holding on to something for dear life like that bull story. It's about toughness, physical and mental.
Short, punchy, powerful. And the battle cry is the same, just hold fast.
Yeah, which is pretty unusual. Most clans have a different motto and battle cry. Imagine hearing that yelled out by hundreds of warriors on the battlefield, instantly identifies them, fires them up. It comes right from their core belief. Legend links it to that same tenacious grip story, used in countless fights.
It's more than just words, like the source says. It's like a heartbeat.
Exactly. Steady, fierce, echoing down the years. Still used at clan gatherings today.
Okay, another visual identifier. Clan MacLeod tartans. There are a few, but some are more common.
Yes. The MacLeod of Harris and Dunvegan honey tartan is often seen as the main one, especially for the Dunvegan branch. It's got dark green and navy blue as the base, with thin red and yellow lines over it. Kind of reflects hunting colors.
That's probably the one most people picture, but then there's the Lewis dress tartan, much brighter.
Oh yeah. Nicknamed the Loud MacLeod. It's got this really bright yellow background with bold black checks and thin red stripes. Very striking. Even though it's linked to Lewis, loads of MacLeods from all branches wear it now, especially for dressier occasions.
Loud MacLeod, love it. And the rose tartan.
That one's newer, registered this century actually. It's got a deep red background with wide black bands and thin white and yellow stripes. Seems popular with the MacLeods down under in New Zealand and Australia.
And then the source mentions others too. Skye tartan, green tartan, Centauri Canadian ones.
Yeah, there are quite a few others, less common or maybe for specific events or groups. Shows the variety within the clan history and its spread.
And you can get them in different color variations now too. Ancient, muted.
Right, modern twists on the old patterns. Gives people style options.
Now Scotland's full of folklore and the MacLeods have their share. Let's get into the supernatural tales. The fairy flag at Dunvegan has to be top of the list.
Oh, the fairy flag Ambratak Sith. It's one of Dunvegan's greatest treasures, absolutely wrapped in legend. Story goes it was a gift from a fairy bride to a MacLeod chief.
A fairy bride.
That's the legend. And they say if you wave it in serious danger, it brings magical help. Maybe creates mist to confuse enemies, drives off attackers, even heals people. The fact that it's actually this really old piece of silk from the Middle East just adds to the mystery.
Incredible. An ancient banner with fairy stories attached. And the farewell on the ferry bridge near Dunvegan. Sounds sad.
It is quite poignant. The ferry bridge is supposedly where that same fairy wife had to leave her chief husband and baby after 7 years. Fairy rules, apparently.
Tough rules.
Yeah. Story says she sang this haunting fairy lullaby as she left. And people say even now, sometimes you can sense things that there smell wildflowers, hear faint singing.
Wow, that mix of sadness and magic is really something. What about the Piper of Dunvegan's tower? Ghost story.
Definitely sounds like one. In one of Dunvegan's old rooms, they say you can sometimes hear ghostly bagpipes playing. It's meant to be the unfinished tune of a young piper killed right before a big party back in the 1600s.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah, his spirit supposedly lingers, playing his tune forever. People report sudden cold spots, the smell of peat smoke. Classic ghost stuff.
Gives you chills. And the prophecy of the three Normans on Lewis sounds ominous.
A classic Highland prophecy. It foretold that the MacLeod lands on Lewis would be lost when 3 chiefs in a row were named Norman. And, well, the 18th and 19th centuries, that actually happened.
No way.
3 successive chiefs named Norman, coinciding with the Highland clearances and massive land loss for the MacLeods on Lewis. So many believe the old prophecy came true.
That's wild. The source lists loads more, too. A time-shifting fairy tower, haunted Trumpin church, the MacCrimmon curse, ghostly pipers at Brushall Castle, spooky mirrors at Dunvegan, phantom ships, a trembling prophecy stone. The MacLeod lands sound absolutely packed with folklore.
They really do. It shows how connected they were to the landscape and how much they believed in these unseen forces shaping their lives.
But it wasn't all magic and myth. Clan history was often about conflict. Let's talk about the blood feuds.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a big part of it. The feud with Clan MacDonald of Sleat was especially long and nasty. Started in the 1500s, mostly fighting over land on Skye, like Trotternish.
And it got brutal.
Horrifically so. Things like the cave massacre on Egg, where MacDonalds were suffocated. Then the retaliatory burning of Trumpin church with MacLeods inside. It led to big fights like the Battle of the Spoiling Dyke, and finally Cuarna Craish, supposedly the last big clan battle on Skye.
Just brutal. The crown had to step in sometimes.
Yeah, they tried to force peace, but the bad blood often lasted for generations. Then there was the big feud with Clan Mackenzie, fighting over Lewis.
That's the one that led to the Lewis MacLeods losing out.
Exactly. Neil MacLeod fought hard against the Mackenzies, but by about 1610, the Mackenzies had taken control of Lewis. A huge power shift.
And the feud with Clan MacLean of Duart that involves the Lady's Rock story, the chief trying to drown his wife.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Lachlan Moore MacLean leaving his MacLeod wife on a tidal rock.
Her.
She survived, miraculously, which just fueled this massive bloody vendetta. Lachlan Moore eventually got killed by the MacLeods. Cycles of revenge, Lady's Rock is still there, a pretty grim landmark.
Wow. There were others, too, with the Morrisons, Macaulays, MacDonalds of Clan Ranald.
Yeah, disputes over law and land with the Morrisons on Lewis. Land fights with the Macaulays, even fights over fishing rights and piracy down south with the MacDonalds of Clan Ranald. It was a really competitive, often violent world.
These feuds sound incredibly complex: land, power, revenge, old grudges.
All mixed together. They really shaped the politics and society of the Highlands and Islands for centuries.
And these feuds often led to actual battles. The source lists quite a few.
Right. Blar de Perce in 1491, MacLeods might have fought for the crown there. Battle of Glendale, they beat back the MacDonalds. Battle of Ignatialach, 1505, maybe fought for the crown again, bit disputed. Battle of Trotternish, that was really a series of fights with the MacDonalds.
Lots of fighting the MacDonalds.
A lot. Battle of Currynish in 1601, pretty nasty, lots of MacDonalds killed. The Siege of Stornoway Castle, that was Neil MacLeod holding out against the Fife adventurers trying to colonize Lewis. And the Battle of Lochs in 1615, Neil MacLeod's final defeat.
A long, tough history. Now, a really key moment. Culloden, 1746. Where did the MacLeods fit in?
Culloden. It's complicated for the MacLeods. The chief at the time, Norman MacLeod of Dunvegan, made a big decision. He supported the government, the Hanoverians.
Oh, the Jacobites.
No. He refused to join Bonnie Prince Charlie, even though he was asked directly. Norm actually raised a militia for the government.
So the main MacLeod branch fought against the Jacobites.
Well, they sided with the government, but their militia actually arrived too late for the battle itself. But Norman MacLeod played a big and pretty controversial role after the battle in the government crackdowns.
How so?
He led some really harsh raids against Jacobite areas,
Yeah.
most famously against the Isle of Skye.
But weren't the MacLeods of Raze? MacLeods?
Exactly. They were a cadet branch, and they had supported the Jacobites. So you had MacLeods essentially fighting MacLeods in the aftermath.
That must have caused huge rifts.
Absolutely. Brushall Castle, the Raze stronghold, was burned by government forces, partly under Norman MacLeod's command. The Raze MacLeods suffered badly. So while Norman's loyalty saved Dunvegan and the main estates from being taken away, it caused lasting bitterness within the clan. Some saw him as pragmatic, others as betraying clan unity. A really tough situation, showing the harsh realities of civil war.
Yeah, highlights those painful choices. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. The source has some strange and unusual facts about the MacLeods.
Huh. Yes, some quirky ones, like the drinking horn challenge at Dunvegan. Apparently, new chiefs had to down this huge horn of wine in one go.
Seriously, what happened if they failed?
Bad omen for their leadership, apparently.
Right. We mentioned the Curse of the Three Normans and the Lewis land loss. And the Lady's Rock incident, the attempted drowning, that's definitely unusual and dramatic. Her survival was incredible.
And her showing up at his dinner table afterwards? Chilling. Then there's the cave massacre on Skye. Grim, but certainly unusual in its method.
What about the fairy flag insurance attempt? That sounds modern.
It was 20th century. Chief John MacLeod supposedly tried to insure the flag for £1 million, but only if they'd guarantee its magical powers worked.
Ah, did the insurers go for it?
No. Funnily enough, they declined that risk.
Can't blame them. And the Highlander connection, the film.
Yeah, Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. Pure fiction, of course, but that 80s film and TV show made the name famous worldwide. Probably boosted tourism to Skye quite a bit.
An unexpected legacy. And finally, the MacLeod meteorite.
Apparently, a meteorite landed near Dunvegan in 1911. Some locals thought it was from the fairies, a gift or warning. But the stone itself vanished soon after. Bit mysterious.
Definitely adds more color to their story. Now, if listening to this has made you want to know even more, and honestly, how could it not? The source gives a great list of suggested further reading.
Yeah, there are some key books. I.F. Grant's The MacLeods. The History of a Clan is a classic, comprehensive history. Alec Morrison's focuses just on the chiefs of Clan MacLeod. And James Hunter wrote Scottish Exodus, which looks specifically at MacLeods who emigrated.
Good starting points. Any more academic ones?
Yep. William Matheson looked into their Gaelic traditions. W.D.H. Seller analyzed their early history. John MacLeod wrote a book just on Dunvegan Castle. And Reverend R.C. MacLeod wrote genealogies back in the early 20th century. Some are online now.
And Frank Fraser-Darling's The Hebridean Traveler.
That gives you a real feel for the landscapes, the places, the cultural background. Lots to dig into if you're interested.
Speaking of going further afield, the MacLeod story didn't stop in Scotland. Let's touch on the diaspora and global reach.
Right. Starting mainly in the 1700s and 1800s, lots of MacLeods left Scotland. Land issues, the aftermath of Culloden, the Highland clearances all pushed people out.
Where do they mostly go?
Canada was huge. Nova Scotia, PEI, Ontario, especially Cape Breton and Glengarry County. In some places, they kept the Gaelic language and culture going for a long time. Australia, New Zealand, too, places like New South Wales and Victoria and Oz. And that settlement in Waipu, New Zealand.
Founded by a Reverend Norman MacLeod.
That's the one. A whole community emigrated together. Really remarkable story of resilience. You even find the MacLeod name in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Barbados tied into the history of that era.
It shows how far and wide the clan spread, and for descendants today wanting to connect, there are Clan MacLeod societies.
Loads of them. There's an international umbrella group, the Associated Clan MacLeod Societies, ACMS. They organize the clan parliament gatherings at Dunvegan. Then you've got active national societies in Scotland, Canada, the U.S., Australia, New Zealand.
All keeping the heritage alive.
Exactly. Promoting the history, celebrating the culture, connecting MacLeods all over the world.
It's amazing how those connections last.
It really shows the enduring power of that clan identity, even today.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Clan MacLeod, wow, what a journey. From those misty origins that Norse Gaelic mix through their complex society, the chiefs, the lands they fought for, those powerful symbols, the fairy tales, the brutal feuds.
We've really seen the importance of loyalty to the chief, to the kin group, and how their legacy still echoes centuries later all around the world.
And just one last reminder, our guide through all this was the excellent book Clan MacLeod, the Ancient Clans of Scotland series. It's the third one from bagtownclans.com after their dives into MacDonald and Campbell.
Really well put together.
Totally. And seriously, if you need a unique gift for someone into history or with Scottish roots, or just that person who has everything, check out the link in the description. It's a great read.
A really rich slice of history to explore.
Okay, final thought to leave you with. In our modern, globalized world, why do these ancient clan identities still hold such power for people? Is it just romantic history? Is it about finding belonging? Or is there something deeper about connecting to our roots, our ancestors, a sense of place?
Definitely something to chew on.